Alrighty, well, I think I'm going to get started and I'm going to let anybody else who comes along join in. I want to start by first kind of introducing myself just a little bit, and then I can get right into it if you would like. My name is Amber Clark, and I am your Neighborhoods and Economic Development Director. And I'm sure some of you, I hope I've met some of you in person. There's a couple of names on this list of participants that's familiar to me, especially a previous peer commissioner of mine, Mr. Bill McConnell. Tonight, I decided I wanted to do some segments where, it's kind of like everybody, neighborhood style can get together and talk about the developments that are happening in the community. And I wanted to try to begin focusing on them in the sense of like, this is what's happening in the Hazlet area for the Hazlet people. And this is what's happening in the Okemos area. And Okemos does comprise a very large portion of our community. So there's always that question from Hazlet residents is, how come those things happen in Okemos? And so just to follow up, if there's anyone that's wondering, there's so much activity that seems to be happening in Okemos. Well, by zoning, you take up a larger portion of the community by addresses and zip codes as well. So, and by zoning, you have the largest portions of commercial, because you operate on Okemos Road and Grand River, and Jolly Road, which is where most of our commercial ends up landing, because that's where they see a lot of traffic, and that's where we're, as a community, have planned to put that through. I know many of us are very educated about government and zoning, so please feel free to jump in and ask any questions at all during this presentation. And my expertise is more about building those relationships with developers, with residents, with business owners, so that we can all have a communal conversation. And I was talking to a trustee today. I said it's like making sure that the languages, you can understand the language, because most of the time the developers want exactly the same things that the residents do as far as their projects. They want successful projects. We want successful projects. We want them to be enhancements to the community, no matter what they are and what we approve. That's the intent and the goal. Let's just make sure that we find the common language, that we're saying for the same things, and that the community is asking the developer for the same thing, and the developer can say whether or not they can or not. So that's good planning, and that's great planning. But as far as economic development, which is my field house, that is my goal, is to just build those relationships, build the brand of our community, understand our development process, and make sure that those decisions we're making are enhancements. So I am going to share my screen because I have a presentation here for us. And here we go. So Meridian Talks Development, the Okemos edition. What is economic development and why neighborhoods? Because now I have this long title, which sounds like I'm just making stuff up just to sound great. But in truth, in reality, when I came, my expertise comes from communications and outreach. I spent some time doing that for the energy efficiency programs for consumers energy. And that time, I spent a lot of it in the city of Jackson, working with municipal leaders down there for safety and energy efficiency. That took me to the assistant to the city manager's position in the city of Jackson for 2 years. And while I was there, I started to request and do different things so that I can understand planning, because planning is a big part about what a community does. And I served on the planning commission. When this position opened up for me, as a resident, I found that people feel that a development is coming into their community and they want to know what the impact is going to be, good or bad. They want to be able to speak to it. And I felt like we may be missing that piece as far as development is concerned. And I want to be able to help all of our municipal leaders and staff get out there and share the reasons why we're approving things, or the reasons why we established our processes this way to better protect our community, and also to make sure that we get competitive development that sets us apart and enhances the charm that we have. So for me, one of the biggest charms that we talk about is us as a neighborhood, a bedroom community. And I've been making this joke, like, we're running out of bedrooms. We do have space for more new neighbors. And I think that we have all, as a nation, had a conversation about, what the new up and coming generation is going to bring as far as what those new neighbors look like and what type of housing they would prefer to have. And to me, housing is housing. We are now entering a phase of lifestyles where people choose to be lifelong renters because they feel like they can afford a different lifestyle amenity, like being able to go on vacation on whim, or just the expense of life in general. The fact that buying a new home now is much more expensive than what it was 30 years ago. And that is, and you look at the housing stock available in your community, and you have to start balancing and understanding that you have to weigh those things when making development decisions. So neighborhoods ties right in, to me, to our economic development plans and needs. So I figured, why wait? I'm sure many of us on tonight are interested in talking about what is happening in Okemos. We got the buildings down. Amber, what are you doing? We've been working very diligently on the Village of Okemos. I mean, many of you have been here in the community longer than I have, because I moved into Meridian Township in 2015. I've been hearing about this site with the bottoms up and the old Ace hardware for probably 10, 15 years, and watching different concepts come before you of what could possibly happen. And here we are, when you see the buildings come down, you're like, okay, this is time. It's either gonna happen and it's gonna be a great successor for those that were not sure how it would fit into our community. We're still here waiting, right? So I just want to take us through where we are, where we've been a little bit, and what happened recently at the beginning of July. So I just want to get that right out of the gate. So again, these are the boundaries of the Downtown Development Authority, the only development authority that we have in Meridian Township, and it does comprise the majority of the four corners, or all of the four corners of Okemos and Hamilton, the Meyer complex, and then down into Wanch Park. And in the past 4 years, the township itself has taken lots of steps as far as its development process to make this attractive for a developer to come here. The reasons it's taken so long to try to find somebody is due to the dilapidated state of the property with its contamination and what was previously there, and then the price tag and what can fit there. Knowing that Okemos Road will probably never be able to have on-street parking makes putting something here as what you're going to put here a concept that needs to be flexible, especially with what's happened recently. So I'll get into that. But this PICA is designated the potential intensity change area to create a walkable community. So we should be focusing on things that are incentivizing people to be down in the area and walk around and spend some time in the area. Have a mix of residential and non-residential and different levels of affordable residential types, and make it a place where people want to come, make it a place-making location. And I think that kind of goes back to the history of the Village of Okemos. I think I hear a lot of residents that live in the area say, this used to be a place, and somehow it lost it on its in its history and on the way, with tenants moving out and larger developments surrounding the downtown district came in, larger complexes came in, and that just comes through the trends of development. Smart development, in my opinion, is taking a look at what your economy can have, what your community can hold, and what are your needs, and then pressing those instead of always feeling the need to go after those trendy things, because it ends up later, generations later, you have to look at how do you continue to use the space efficiently. So the concept of what we have in front of us for Village of Okemos started in the 2017, 2018 with the True North development team purchasing the properties with the northeast and southeast corners of Okemos and Hamilton. It's 4 acres and comprises kind of the heart of the DDA at that intersection. And then in 2018, that developer was able to secure financing from the Department of Environment, like Great Lakes and Energy, formerly DEQ, for 1.3 million for the contamination. And then May 2019, the township approved the concept of the mixed-use building, combining residential and non-residential elements into the buildings. And so I'm going to show you what that concept was. I put this on over the street. So you see this area right here, it's Hamilton. This is Ardmore. You got Okemos Road right here. And the building concept was a mixed office and residential building on either sides of Okemos Road going north and south. You had retail, commercial going east and west on Hamilton on both sides of Hamilton. And then, in the concept of having a residential townhomes and garages on Ardmore. It included community elements like public clock tower and some art, innovative lighting. The parking deck was subsurface at this time. So this was the original concept, and this was approved. And I apologize, this is the incorrect date, because this was approved originally in 2019 in May. In January, the developer proposed an amendment, and this was due to COVID in relation to office leasing spaces were essentially not going to be financed at this time. So the idea was to create a flexible space for the first floor office units in these buildings on Okemos Road, and that was approved in January of this year, 2021. All right, so let's get to where we are now. It's July. So our team received a proposed amendment for the Village of Okemos. And after having to begin the publications and the notifications, we selected July 7th, or the Community Development Director selected July 7th as the notice of public hearing date. And we realized that a lot of people, may have been on vacation. At the same time, there were 4 proposals for mixed use amendments that we received at that time. And we, holding on to that just due to dates for requirements of notice of the public hearing. The 7th was the best date for that, and all 4 needed to be heard. So we do, that's another reason why I'm making sure that I'm holding these meetings, so that you can hear that it wasn't just the Village of Okemos, but Pine Village also had a change of proposal, and that's up in Hazlitt. Newton Point had a change to their mixed use, which I will talk about shortly. And there is a mixed use overlay district in a residential area that requires a formal proposal change, an amendment to the MUPUD anytime a resident wants to change the size of their deck. So we're working on that because we can see that as a big inconvenience to any property owners over in the area. But getting to the proposal for the Village of Okemos as it stands right now, the developer is requesting the ability to remove the parking deck and to place the buildings that would be office residential on Okemos Road that were approved to go to just residential in January, that they would take them out completely. And that would reduce the non-residential space significantly, well down to about 18,000 square feet of non-residential space. And they would put 2 identical bookend residential buildings on Ardmore, north and south. We have heard many thoughts from members of the public, as well as township board members, that this is not the concept that the residents were interested in. And I believe very strongly, as I stated at the public hearing, because there were some comments of, why does this have to happen? When are you going to start? There were some mixed feelings about whether or not the developer was still interested in making this project feasible and bringing it to our community. And I have to say that it's not necessarily about the developer's passion for our community or not. It's about what is feasible to make this project work and whether or not it makes sense to find a flexible way to have the development happen. So I think everybody is in agreement that this proposal in front of us is probably not the vision that we had for our downtown. And since it is in a tax authority of our downtown development district, we do have some power in saying and working with the developer, negotiating what it is we'd like to see. So their request again was to remove the parking deck that would be over in this area and possibly build these buildings way later in the future, that the buildings that they would begin with right now are the residential on Ardmore and the commercial spaces on Hamilton, with the reduced commercial spaces on Hamilton. Douglas J is still a partner and is still going to take over the retail space on Hamilton. They're looking for a way to make sure that they can get this project started this year. That is still the goal. So in front of the community development director, based on how the ordinance is written, it is up to that director to make the decision about how to bring this forward. So I want to reiterate that since the proposal, we've had many discussions with the developer. We believe the developer is willing to have more conversations to negotiate, finding some ways to meet our community needs and meet our vision for the dream of the downtown. And we have said loud and clear that we don't believe that their proposal as it stands right now is suitable for that. But it is a proposal on the table and we do have to follow through with the process. So the next steps for this site, since their proposal, is the director of community planning in 60 days from July 7th to make a formal decision and either approve the proposal, approve with conditions or partially approve, or deny the request. And the township board, again, as I said, have spoken with me and spoken with the developer, and I think there are some continued conversations to have. So I've gone through a little bit of the Village of Okemos, and I want to take it back to any of our attendees right now. If you have any questions about it specifically, please let me know. You can either raise your hand or shout out. I'm trying to see if I can open my full screen here so that I can see you raise your hand should you have any additional questions. Anybody? Wow, you're a quiet group. Okay. So that is where we are. The community development director has not made a formal decision about the Village of Okemos just yet. And that is not a part of our process typically to make a public announcement for a public hearing that's just held with the community development director, but we will. Oh, I do have a question from Mr. McConnell. Mr. McConnell, you are ready when you have a minute.
No, I just saw that Kyle Cranzo was asking, said he had.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how to raise my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Too many screens in front of me. So everybody just shout out. I'm a little here. Go ahead.
I just had a couple questions. As far as, and I think this was brought up in the recent public meeting too. Somebody had a question about if there's a way to sort of require the commercial spaces to be used for certain use cases, like a restaurant or, basically things that would make it a walkable community where people are going to be drawn into it versus like a law firm or, something like that wouldn't be conducive to that. Is there any way for that kind of language to be included in, this kind of proposal or that kind of development? I don't know the details of like what actually can be forced upon a developer or anything, but is that something that can actually be done but like by the township of like, okay, great, we can have commercial spaces, but it only has to be used for these certain kind of things that actually go, align with what we're looking for the community to be?
Got it. That's a really good question. So I think the answer to your question really is yes. And I think But I don't know if it's gonna be able to be that finite in the sense of we can say only a law firm or,
Or only not a law firm, I guess.
or only, right, exactly. I don't think that legally we would want to be that exclusive
Sure.
as far as the industry type. So, but I think I get where you're going with is how does the township encourage a balance of industry that's going to be down there
Yeah,
that we would like to see. I think that's what
yeah, that would be more aligned with, bringing people down there so they can shop and eat and.
right, exactly. Well, I mean, one thing that protects us all as far as what kind of operations happen where in the community is the zoning.
Mhm.
So, you're never going to get some large, manufacturer that's going to plop itself down in the heart of the DDA just based on that zoning requirement. And the entire DDA has a MUPUD overlay district. So development in the DDA has to have the mixed residential versus non-residential. So that, as far as zoning, is also a requirement. As far as powers of incentivizing specific types of industries, that would probably fall more to what the downtown development tax authority would be able to do. So because there is a tax capture happening here and there is an authority that has a responsibility to utilize those funds from the increase that comes in the property values, the money that's there, it is their responsibility to find a good use for it by encouraging tenants, right? And making updates to the infrastructure and possibly providing grants to the business owners in the community. So there are multiple layers of the things, and it's a very good question that you asked, multiple layers of things that the township did in order to make sure that this site could even be developed. And having a DDA is one of those financial strong arms to get the type of vision we're looking for, because that is why this is such a public development as well, is because we're going to be a public partner and making sure that it's viable. So when the developers are presenting their additional proposals, that is why we have so much skin in the game, in a sense of making sure that this is the right decision to either approve it as it stands or to make different changes based on our vision, because we're going to be, in some sense, assisting to finance a part of this. So very good question. And that would be a very quick and easy way, is how the DDA is a financial partner. They could say, okay, well, we want to make sure that you're assisting, small businesses or entrepreneurs or sole proprietors or something like that, and give a certain amount of financial assistance for that specifically.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then just the other question I had was, do we know how much square feet there was of commercial space, prior to the project, like that they all got demolished? Like I'm just curious if this new revised plan is even adding much more commercial / retail square footage than what was there previously.
Oh, well, yes, I don't know the exact numbers.
I mean, not exact, but
not exact, but we know that we had the Tuba Museum up in this corner, which probably took like 3,600 square feet or less as a building. Well, no, it had a couple of floors. So, but that took only this comprised corner over in this section of the development. And then they had, the bottoms up and the Rite Aid and dry cleaners over in this section. If they develop, they will, as proposed and approved, it's 30,000 square feet. So that's, I believe, almost twice as much of commercial space. So the non-residential portion is twice as much as the non-residential of what was previously there.
Okay. And so in this revised plan, there would be nothing at this point built along Okemos Road, really?
Okay, so, and again, it's a great question, and I want to make sure that this is just their proposal, right? They have proposed this. Yes, no one has approved no one has approved anything, but yes, they have requested if we would allow them to keep the buildings off of Okemos Road. As you see, these are in gray,
Yeah.
They're kind of, off of Okemos Road and allowing for the Ardmore Hamilton. So if you could imagine, if this was approved, you'd be driving on Okemos Road and you'd be looking into a parking lot. And I said,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I might be looking for a new job if we allow this to happen. So
Yeah.
I think the developer again is what can they build right now?
Mhm.
The construction climate is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And we can go into even more details about the things that developers have to do in order to get a mixed development financed. It's intense because it requires so much commercial, and the banks are looking at the overall commercial available in the community. And if we have a very large mall that has, some retraction in commercial, so it doesn't weigh very well for financing. So that's their mission, is trying to get it in the ground, and our mission as well. But how do we do that together?
Yep. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello?
Hi,
Amber?
Vance.
Oh.
Just 1 second. I have a hand raised and it just says iPhone, so I don't know who it
Oh,
is.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Amber. This is Joyce Vancouvering. And I'm a member of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. And we haven't had a meeting in a while. So I was curious, and Bill McConnell, Bill, you might be able to help me out too. What happens to the BRA money that we've contributed? I can't recall how much it was, Amber, maybe you know.
Yes,
But what
yes.
happens to that money now?
Very good question. So for right now, the Village of Okemos has not requested any money from the brownfield yet. The money that was used was from the state.
Eagle.
Yep, was from Eagle
okay.
for the contamination, the cleanup. If you've been over in the site, the large area with like the 12-foot hole in the ground,
Mhm.
that portion of the project Eagle did completely on their own, because there were no property owners at the time. And so and you can tell that's kind of what Eagle does. They don't do a backfill compaction. They just take the contamination out. So as of today, we do not have a request from the developer for brownfield reimbursement. We do believe that we will. But that hasn't happened yet. And I believe that can't happen yet until we approve what the site is going to look like, what the site plan is going to be, so they can get that designed and engineered. And then they know what's going to happen as far as what needs to be removed and what the brownfield will pay for. So very good question, Ms. Vancouvering. I know we have a new director, and we're trying to make sure that we stay up on top of, because brownfield has quite a few activities going on right now.
Right,
So,
right.
That's a very good question.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Paquette, Mr. Vance.
Hello, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Oh, good. I was just, the planning director is gonna make a decision. Is this one of those major or minor decisions? Will this change have to go back before the board to be approved?
Very good question. This was a minor amendment based on the ordinance as it was written and okay.
Whatever.
So in January, when the Village of Okemos developers came and they proposed an amendment, the Planning Commission, and it was a minor amendment by the definition of the ordinance. The Planning Commission saw that, and in the interim, since January to now, they've made some changes to the language to clarify the definition of a minor versus a major amendment. So I'm saying all of that to say, because when we received the minor amendment and that wasn't approved by the township board, it was still considered a minor amendment. And basically the way the ordinance had been written was anything that is an addition to the project would be a major amendment. We didn't consider any reductions of the project at the time a minor amendment. So it was still by classification a minor amendment when we received the proposal. So it stays with the community development director. I'm sorry, Vance, that was very winded of an answer, but I always like to take people through the process because government likes to make a process out of everything and it gets dizzying. So because of the way the ordinance was written, both proposals were minor amendments because they were retracting instead of reducing the project. And that means that the decision is with the community development director, and he has 60 days to make that decision. And again, he can decide to approve, he could approve this version with the buildings off of Okemos Road. He could approve it with different conditions, basically saying, you know, I approve only a portion of what you're requesting because they have a request to reduce the buildings off of Okemos Road and to remove the parking deck. So he could approve a portion of that and with conditions, or deny the request itself. And if he denies the request, that means they have to build what they are approved, which is what was approved in January. And so going back to that slide, this is what was approved in January with the mixed office buildings on Okemos Road in Hamilton and Ardmore. Mr. Vance, is that your last question?
Well, I was just looking
Oh.
things over. I'm trying to understand what, so, well, somehow or another, this would get back to the board, I assume, for this major change, or?
So, yeah, that's again, what I'm trying to say is that it's not up to the board to approve the site plan at this time based on what, based on the definition of the ordinance and when we receive the proposal. Now, what the board is going to do and what other bodies are going to do, since this is in the Downtown Development Authority, and they will be a financing partner to help get this project off the ground, the application to the DDA will include a plan of what this development is going to include. How, you know, how big it is, how much commercial space it's going to have. Those elements can be included in the conversation about how the DDA supports that project. But as far as bringing this whole site plan in front of the board again, unless they make another amendment, I don't see that happening with this stage right now.
So just because of the definition of the ordinance or the wording of the ordinance, it can't possibly be a major change because there's no,
They weren't adding, yeah,
they weren't adding.
yes, yes.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you.
You're welcome. The planning commission did catch that after their first proposed amendment, but it has to go through the process to get the approval for the change. And I do believe that the township board just approved that. So if we were to receive an additional amendment, depending on what their proposal was, you know, if they were adding or subtracting, depending on how much, that is in the ordinance as written now. So that won't happen going forward, but that did happen this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to go back to Mr. Kyle Cranzo.
Yeah, just a quick one from that question. Does the director not have the authority to basically push this back to the board?
Well, I mean, we always, part of our,
Because it is, you know, sort of got through the loophole.
well, it's not necessarily
Well,
really,
not necessarily a loophole, but
not a loophole. I mean, it was just something that it was just never considered when creating the ordinance that the developer would want to make the project smaller. And again, they were only requesting to retract because of the economic climate right now. The other thing that staff have to make sure that we do is when we're making these decisions that we're protecting the township from being sued.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to just bring this project back because they're reducing the commercial space, because Newton Point severely reduced their commercial space. Red Cedar Flats has severely reduced its commercial space for approved MUPD. So you see what I'm saying? You have to make sure that the process should be the same for all developments, no matter what. And again, because this is in the heart of our downtown, it's in our DDA, it's the puzzle piece catalyst project to how we see and envision future development. We're all very passionate and very emotionally charged by it. And I do believe that the developer, again, they want to build something that they think is financially going to work. So their concerns right now and their adaptability is really related to the market more than trying to like supersede a township ordinance. That's really where these changes have come from, is trying to get it in the ground now in a climate where there's so much up in the air and so many things are different than when this conversation first started, right? In 2018, we never thought that the cost of materials would be so high. And we already knew that this would be an expensive bill, to get this building in.
Mhm. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I thought I saw another hand from Miss Joyce Van Koovering, but you let me know. All righty.
Nope, Amber, sorry, I forgot to lower my hand.
You're okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so we've got the big ticket item out of the way, Village of Okemos. Let's get to the rest of the wonderful things that are happening, and thank you all for your great questions. So Joe's on Jolly. If you've been down to the Jolly Oak, Jolly Road intersection, you'll see the True Value Tire. It's got this sign, coming soon, Joe's on Jolly, and this concept. And this is actually the mixed, non-residential portion of the elevation concept. And so Miss Joyce Van Koovering, you've heard of elevation because it's really our first brownfield to go through that's had actual reimbursements and has started out that fund. I believe they have 90% occupancy for those elevation apartments for their phase two of their development. So they're pushing on to phase 3 very soon. There's some drainage issues happening over there, I think. Again, because every single time we have a new development, the drain office was going to take a look at that and make sure that they really do put on the most intense requirements usually for the new development, just because a lot of our infrastructure is kind of old and it's been sitting there, and it sits on very large suburban parking lots that haven't been broken up in a long time. And we're finding over the years that having all of this impervious surface is not the greatest. It's not the greatest for our environment. And Mr. Bill McConnell will be able to attest to that. We are very environmentally conscious here. So that has kind of been the crux of development issues for Joe's on Jolly, and the next steps for the elevation, as well as the drain office. So in that the drain at that site needs so much attention. So there's a rain garden that's going to go in to the left of the site that will appease the drain office, and we'll be able to get Joe's on Jolly, which is this wonderful restaurant brought by the same partners of Capital Prime, with a fitness area off to the side, and this like patio thing. I'm dying for these. This is such a yuppie thing. Like, I always think like this is just my generation loves just string lights on something, and I'll just think it's amazing. But there's this wonderful outdoor seating area in between the fitness portion, and that whole parking lot is a joint collaborative easement between the elevation and this project. And it's just really exciting to see these things kind of finally get their nails going. So if you're driving on Jolly Road, you'll see the trucks, and they've got compaction in there because they've had their building and their demolition permits since the beginning of the year, but because of the issues with the drain office, have kind of had to hold off on getting that done. So that's where that is. And then of course, Buddy's Pizza, which I just said this today, we're gonna have to figure out a different way to like talk about Buddy's, because I'm so used to Buddy's big, Southwest nachos style Buddy's, where my husband plays softball. But we're gonna have a Buddy's Pizza, the original Detroit style pizza, where our Burger King is. And so if you've been on Grand River over in the area by the mall, you'll see that it's down. If you haven't, it's been demolished. That too got a little hung up by the drain office. You've probably heard a little bit about next year in 2022, we will be having the year of construction going on in the township. And the Ingham County Road Department will be doing Okemos Road, from the bridge to Clinton Street. And MDOT will be replacing and resurfacing a drain and doing road construction work on Grand River from Okemos Road to just in front of Playmakers. And that has to do with also making an update to the Meyer-Gittenberg drain that's under the street there, that's been there for years upon years, essentially when Meyer went in, and it's not at capacity anymore. It just can't hold the amount of water that we get. I think it flooded again, Okemos, the intersection of Okemos and Grand River, I think flooded again a few weeks ago when we got those horrible, horrible days of rain. So that activity is happening. And so now when we have this, buddies coming in, the drain office is taking a look and saying, look, we need to make sure that you have got everything as far as infrastructure underneath this taken care of appropriately, so that we're not exacerbating any work that we're going to do in 22. So that is exciting and getting done. And we're on to our residential projects. And this one is one that's got kind of another drain office issue, and I think a county road issues. We're trying to get the Woda Cooper, one of our affordable housing projects, into the community. We've been very excited. This $12 million investment pilot that's a payment in lieu of taxes. So essentially the township allows for instead of the property tax payments, it's how much they're actually, it's an appropriate amount that they're receiving from rent, so that the property owners can stay there for as long as possible and keep the ownership of the townhouse suites as long as possible, bringing some stability and affordable housing units. The idea is hopefully we ingest some more families in the area, bring the Wardcliffe School back to life. And residential developments are really important. We are one of the most affordable locations in the state to live. I mean, we're one of the most affordable states. We're one of the most affordable locations in the state. And, each new family is going to spend a good portion of their income for the first couple of years here just establishing themselves in our community. And so that's the other part of the neighborhood portion, is that our neighbors are an economic driver. Our neighborhoods, our schools are an economic driver. So Newton Point, which I just spoke about, they also had a mixed use proposal, plan unit development amendment proposal. And I believe that this is their second one. It is very limited in the amount of commercial space. It will not be 12,000 square feet of commercial space. I think it's down to 3,600 square feet of commercial space. And it does limit that as far as the public retail and commercial use aspect. There are going to be quite a few dog parks and communal spaces for the tenants and for the neighbors around the area. But it is something that has caused some tension for neighbors, because they are looking for more when we're requesting and we're approving these MUPUDs. They're looking for more. What I've learned in my time when researching economic development projects for mixed use, the lenders are looking for confirmed commitment, right? They're looking for good credit because they take a look at your community at large and they weigh how much commercial space do you have available already that's already built. And if they feel like you're overbuilt, which most, I would say almost all of America is very saturated as far as retail and comparing to other communities and other nations, we are hitting these saturation points. And lending now is getting a little bit tighter. They want to see that you have tenants. So most lenders are looking for 25% cash down payment for the developer. And, depending on how large the commercial mixed use, 30% tenant occupancy. They want to see you've got some signed leases for 30% of the space before they're going to say, we can finance this, which takes time, right? It takes time to get those agreements. And so that's why developers are looking for ways that they continue to make proposed changes so that they can get the projects built. This is not in the DDA though. And so we don't have that like political push or pull, but it is not in the DDA. I think I saw a hand from Mr. Patrick Reynolds.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
I can look it up on my own. I need to look something else up. Never mind.
Okay, okay. So, and Silverstone Estates, the Mayberry Homes community has been approved, and that started with the rezoning and approval process in 2018. It was platted, I believe, an approval of the plat in this year in March. And so they'll begin development of the 25 single-family homes for Okemos schools. And what I have to say about Mayberry is, like, every single time they come with a project, a good portion of their homes are already sold. They already know that we have new neighbors confirmed with these projects. They've made quite a name for themselves in the Lansing region. And so they have this project as well as Copper Creek and Hazlet going on right now. They're very good and efficient with their timelines of getting these in. Oh, did I go back? I did. I also wanted to share with everybody the list of local roads, repaving and improvements for the township. So take a look if you see your street name on there or a major street that you take. I live in Hazlet, so I'm this Buckingham and Cliffdale, and they are kind of listed in the order that they're going to actually happen as well. And if you live on any of these streets, you should have received a letter. But if you don't live exactly on these streets, but you take any of these as ways to get to your street, just wanted to provide that information as well. Well on the way to doing and completing our road improvement program that's managed by Deputy Manager Perry. All righty. We're ranked, Okemos Hazlet got ranked by Niche and Newsweek this year. It's crazy to be ranked as one of the best. I mean, not in my head, of course, because I obviously think this place is the best, but it's crazy to be ranked during COVID, that this is something that they were considering and they're still looking at what we're doing. Our projections for this year is to still have, and in revenue income as far as permitting development is concerned. So just basically the money we receive from permits for development is $60 million. And that's a normal generous year for the township without COVID. So I know that it seems bleak. I think our economic developers, all of us these days, need to kind of give some insight into what we feel is the future. Anytime that you have a national episode like, even 9/11 or a recession, anytime you have these national episodes, they're going to have some sort of longstanding impact on our financial status and even, or maybe the process. So we look at lending now, and lenders are not taking the risks that maybe they would have before the last recession, knowing that outcome. And we look at what's happened with economics and traveling, even still with September 11th, but that didn't change to negatively impact travel. We just changed how we travel. So I think the impact of COVID is it's not going to completely change around how we shop. We've all started shopping online more. All of those companies are starting to provide online services or contactless services, but you can't order a cup of coffee online, but you can't pick it up. Like, you still got to go to the store to pick it up, right? You can schedule your haircut, but you still got to go get it. So there are going to be, no matter what, these tactile service industries that are going to need a space. I don't believe that every single person will be able to work from home for the rest of their life, and that every job is best suited being in a home, and that office space may make a rebound, but we just need to be flexible in what that looks like. It is imperative for the DDA to have a project, that is the only way that we're going to be able to capture that new money, that's that future money, to push and elevate the DDA forward and grow it, so that we can maybe help some of those property owners and businesses that are along the line and the outskirts of the DDA to support revitalization on our own. That's how communities do it. That's how Grand Rapids pulled itself out, is taking a look at the powers that it has and being creative with development. So that is where we are this evening, ladies and gents. I'd like to invite you to ask me any other questions that you may have tonight. I will stop sharing. Anything else? Oh,
Amber,
go
I
ahead.
have one.
Sure, Miss Vancouver.
What's the status of Pine Village in Hazlet?
Yes, so Pine Village, they had a proposal for an amendment to their MUPUD as well. However, their proposal wasn't really to reduce the amount of commercial space. They needed to reconfigure their first floor. So I believe, because that also was a minor amendment, that is in front of the community development director to make a decision within 60 days. I believe his decision will be to approve it, because they are not reducing any of the commercial space. They're just changing around where the front door is. So they just had to move the first floor around. If they are approved, they should be able to start this year. They have some incentives from the brownfield, as you know, to begin this year. And I believe they lose a 0.5% until September. So they want to get approved to start.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Oh, Mr. McConnell.
Yeah, thanks. Is that the first time that the front entrance to Pine Village has been modified, or is that going back to a prior plan? Do you happen to know?
It is not going to a prior plan. This is the first time they moved their front door. I think they had they had spoken of a concept to include a way for people to get on and off with CATA very quickly. And they were going to put the CATA stop more closer to the land preserve area of the site. And that just isn't going to work. And it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense as far as planning is concerned anyway. So they just decided they flip the front entrance around. It would make it easier for people to come in. And that CATA bus stop might need to move up further.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Well, I appreciate all of your time. It is all valuable. I like that we can all be here and you can ask me these questions, because if you have them, then other people in the community have them. And again, this is recorded, so we'll be able to share it, and you can watch it and share it with other people. You can be informed. I kept my email on most of the slides. It's clark@meridian.mi.us. If you have any other questions, you want to have a follow-up about any of the projects, and I encourage you to keep coming out. Thank you.